Everybody, this is Cathy at Homespun Market. I hope you guys are having a great week. They are calling for a major snowstorm in my area in a couple days, and it's 52 today. So I have to take advantage of the temperature and work in my shop a little bit. And we're going to be using some reclaimed cedar that I have from a cedar chest that I took apart. Don't get all up in arms over it. It really wasn't worth that much. It's okay. And we also need to work on this. My hoard of thrifted items that probably isn't as big as a lot of people's, but it's starting to get a little bit too big for the space that I have back there. And I also have some other, I don't even want to look over there anymore. I have a lot of scrap wood. I've taken apart some pallets. I have lots of small pieces. I need to make some trays and some spindle boxes. Anyway, we're going to be working on that, and I'm just going to do one or two every video and just kind of try to churn some things out to get posted for sale, and I hope you'll come along and watch. Let's hit it. So I stopped on the side of the road and picked up a free cedar chest. It was about 38 inches wide and very small. It had ornate legs, and that's actually why I stopped. But it had a lot of damage, water damage. I actually couldn't save the legs. They just fell apart when I took them off. But this large piece to the left is what I'm going to use to make this table. And as you see, it is not solid cedar. It is from Lane, but it has a cedar veneer on the inside and some sort of veneer on the outside. And the top, front, and sides were like that. Only the lid had that weird wood in the middle. The sides were solid cedar with a veneer on the outside. But this is just the back part of the lid. And you'll see here, see that weird, that's not cedar. It's got a veneer on the inside, and that's how the top was. So I've already made two really large breadboards, two small rounds that I had some cloches for the top, and a bench. And this is what's left over. This is a piece of one of the sides. See, it is solid cedar, but then it has this veneer on the outside. So I'm probably going to do breadboards with these. I don't know if I can use these for anything. These were left over from an ornate breadboard that I cut. And then we're using that top today to make the table. Okay, I realize this is not the safest situation with a table saw, but I promise I do have a table saw table coming soon. So I don't need to build a top because we're using the lid from the chest. So I had some 2x4s and I decided to trim and rip those down for my legs. I got 3 legs out of one 2x6, and then I used a scrap 2x4 to rip the 4th leg down. Once that was all done, I just did kind of a little dry fit on the lid to see where I wanted them to be and try to decide how I was going to get these leg assemblies put together. I cut some little stretcher pieces and I put some pocket holes in each end of those to marry the 1x2s together. I'm sorry, they're 2x2s, but as we know, they are really just 1.5 by 1.5. So these are just going to kind of hold those together. And then I'm going to use some little stretcher pieces and build an X in the middle of each leg assembly. I put a shade of gray on these because I'm using this as a staging table in front of my shiplap staging wall, which is very stark white. So this was in the oops pile at Lowe's where somebody just didn't like this color, and it's really pretty, and it only cost me $9 for the whole gallon. So this is just going to be a little bit off from that white, so it'll show up better. So here I'm just using some 1x2 trim, and I measured down halfway. These legs are 27 inches long. So I just nailed these in at 13.5 inches. So the legs would be the same width apart all the way down, and it'll make the table more sturdy. I'm not going to build a skirt or a box or anything under the tabletop. I'm just putting on the legs. So this trim is a little bit rough. It has some rounded edges, and I did not rip that off. I just used it for the X's as well. And the way I do these is I just cut the angles, and I cut all four of these pieces, and I did have to go back and trim off a little tiny bit here and there, but the best fitting piece I use as the one solid piece, and then the other two pieces I just mark and use those to cut the middle out to make the other part of the X. And I just do it as I go along. I'm not very good at measuring exact angles. So I ended up putting some pocket holes in the whole leg assembly, and I painted it all gray. And then I used this stretcher, I call it, just centered this on the tabletop and attached it with glue and nails. And that way it's just going to marry everything together. So this is attached to the table, and then I screwed in the leg assemblies onto the table. And then I go back and I have pocket holes in this little piece as well. And I just go back and then screw this into each leg assembly. So the whole thing is all attached together. And it worked out really great. The top is a little bit less than an inch thick. I wanted it to stand about 28 inches tall. And it really worked out well. There's the bench that I have already made, and the breadboards, and then one of the cedar rounds with the cloche. I've already sold one, and there's the table. See how it just is a little bit off from the white? I really like it. It turned out great. Here is the ugly bird house that I asked suggestions for on how to flip it. You can go to my first video to see a full clip and description. This was actually a simple project. I took the roof off because I knew it was going to be open on top, but there were so many nails sticking out halfway. I went ahead and took the whole thing apart. It needed a good cleaning inside and out. So once I did all of that, I painted the inside a vintage blue color, and then I went back and painted the outside white. I don't have that footage, but trust me, it's white. And I forgot to paint the edges, so I had to go back and do that. And this is actually where I realized I needed to paint the edges of the front and the back. And this is also where I decided I was going to add a spindle to the gable end instead of it being completely open. And it really changed it. It is very cute. I chose a natural spindle from a chair that I took apart and just trimmed it and held the front and back together with this clamp, put a little glue on there, and then used my brad nailer. I see it's a little off kilter there, but there was a little piece of wood stuck on the bottom. So once I sanded the bottom off, it was level. So since I had to paint the sides, I went ahead and filled the nail holes. It didn't look good, so I filled those and sanded everything back down and put another coat of paint on it. And then I wet distressed it. I normally don't do that. And I had some homemade chalk paint on here as the base coat. And then I went back with this flat white, and maybe it was because it was that chalk paint or I let it dry for a couple days, but it was really difficult to wet distress. I think I'm just going to stick to sanding. But here I noticed you could see through the hole, obviously, so I just painted a little piece of wood the same color blue and taped that on the inside. And I had to use my tape line to hold it down to put a little weight on it, but it worked. And it covered up that hole. So here it is. I think it's cute just by itself because of the spindle, but the idea is that you can cover something with it. So I just put it over top of that little jar, and then I put some floral in it, and I love this. I think it is so cute. Look at that. Isn't it cute? Y'all let me know what you think in the comments. But another way to use it would be to put some wooden utensils in there. I think it's cute like this too. It would be cute on your kitchen counter or anywhere in your house.